is a commitment I made that we're going to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord as of today.
So that short little clip that you just watched was our current U.S. President, Joe Biden, signing an executive order back in 2021 that effectively allowed or directed the United States to rejoin the Paris Climate Accords. So, executive orders are a very powerful tool of the president. They are orders that direct the agencies on how to implement the laws. So the president could just make their priorities known and appoint leaders and let the leaders do what they do. Or the president can sign an order that basically has the force of law and legally binds these agencies into implementing the laws. The constitutional basis for these are the executive power that's found in the Constitution. Again, the Constitution is pretty brief and light on words, but the faithfully execute, those two important words, have been, interpreted pretty broadly to include things like executive orders. So, as I said, the president could just appoint a leader of an agency and tell them, verbally what to do. But these orders have a sense of formality, a sense of binding, and they live on after the president leaves office. So executive orders do have the force of law, so they are more powerful than just simply telling your agency heads what you would like to see. These executive orders can really address a wide scope of issues, including national security, environmental policies, economic regulation, immigration, but they still have to be based on existing authority. The president cannot use the executive order to do something they otherwise would not be allowed to do. So these executive orders, there is some limitation. So courts can overturn these if someone sues over them. Courts can overturn them if they're found to be unconstitutional. If the court decides that or finds that the president overstepped their authority, did something outside of the authority either granted to them by the Constitution, by Article 2, or authority granted by Congress. So executive orders can't be used to expand the president's scope of authority, but they can be used to implement and to direct the president's scope of authority even after they're out of office. These are a powerful tool because they are quick. They allow the force of law to happen without going through the rulemaking process, without going through congressional law, legislation, which could take a really long time. Again, these orders direct an agency to do certain things. So the agency is still going to have to pass the rules and the regulations and go through those processes, but they've now been ordered to do so. Now, because these are issued, very quickly, you saw just, draft the order and sign it. They can be undone just as quickly. So what we've seen in the last few administrations is one president might issue a flurry of executive orders directing the federal government to act a certain way, and then the next president comes in and just writes their own order, undoing all of that work or going in a different direction. So executive orders can be very powerful, but they are still subject to limitations, and they can be undone quite quickly. Just to give you some examples of what executive orders can do, you just saw the one where current President Biden, ordered the U.S. to rejoin the Paris Accords. Other examples of really notable executive orders in the previous administration included the travel ban that prevented people of certain national origins from coming into the United States. So that was an order to one of the agencies in the executive branch, the Department of Homeland Security. That's what that order was. So immigration policies can definitely be included in these executive orders. Another use of executive orders can be in response to emergencies to move very quickly. So, for example, another executive order that's also quite famous, quite notorious, was under the Biden administration. The mask enforcement due to COVID. Requiring mask and federal distancing in buildings to combat the spread of COVID-19. So that's an example of an executive order used in an emergency circumstance, but had pretty large, wide-ranging effects. So these executive orders, in summary, they can be very powerful, they can be very quick, but they cannot expand the scope of executive power. They're subject to judicial review and can be overturned, and they are very easy to be overturned by the next incoming president, so you don't want to overly rely on them for long-standing policy.